Quick shout out to the 2 Uber comrades on Patreon supporting this channel, my content, my partner. Thank you, Rosa, and Independent Left News. Definitely check out Independent Left News. So the U.S. House yesterday voted overwhelmingly to give the apartheid state of Israel $1 billion for this Iron Dome missile defense system bullshit thing. Not frankly, surprising. It's a bipartisan, issue propping up the apartheid state of Israel and just their just completely immoral and disgusting treatment of the, Palestinian people and occupying their land and bombing them and starving them to death, etc., etc. And the corporate, duopoly is in complete support of that. Not surprisingly, there was very few people. It's like 7 or 9 in total in the House that voted against it. Some members of the squad did, which kudos to them. But again, that's doing the fucking bare minimum, right? If you, actually care about human rights and, protecting the most vulnerable and marginalized people in the world, then you would vote against this. So just doing the bare minimum. But again, can't even count on AOC to do that because she first voted no, which obviously is the correct position, and then seems like Nancy Pelosi pulled her aside, and then AOC voted present. Jesus Christ. Ocasio-Cortez votes present after helping to force leaders to bring up funding as a standalone bill. I mean, Jesus Christ. And then she supposedly cries on the floor of the House after. So, it's all fucking, performative, this liberal opposition, whether it's to, the apartheid state of Israel or to, the capitalist class. It's all performative. Her crying on the House floor after voting present, switching from, her no vote or her tax-rich dress that she wore to the, disgusting Met Gala, right? So it passed 420 to 9 under suspension of the rules. Process allowed a quick floor vote given strong bipartisan support. Jesus Christ. So here, again, kudos for doing the bare minimum, voting against it. That's awesome. Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Cory Bush, Marie Newman, AOC voted present along with Hank Johnson of Georgia. Chairman of the House Natural Resources Committee, Arizona Rep. Raul Grijalva, provided the rare no vote from a Democrat in a leadership position. I mean, Jesus Christ, look at that. We have somebody in a Democratic leadership position voting no, and AOC votes present. I mean, that's really? But then she cries after, so I guess that makes up for her voting present to, fund this genocidal regime, right? and then, Libertarian Republican Thomas Massey voted against it. So don't agree with him on most things that, he probably supports, but kudos to him for voting no on this. So, I mean, $1 billion fucking dollars to the apartheid state of Israel so they can continue, to slaughter and oppress en masse the Palestinian people. There was no talk, among the duopoly of how are we going to pay for that? How are we going to pay for that? Yet that always comes up, when we're talking about universal health care, a Green New Deal. So we have a inhabitable planet to live on. All these other measures that would benefit the working class. But if it has to do with missiles or bombs, military industrial complex, money printer go Brrr, brrr. And this is just another sickening example of that, right? Let's see. Here we go. So this is Richard Medhurst just really going after AOC, and I'm all here for it. Not only does, but again, it's a structural issue. Like this is going to be the limits of liberal democratic opposition. That's why we need a socialist revolution. We need to overthrow this disgusting capitalist, white supremacist, settler colonial system. Otherwise, we're going to keep, doing things like funding the apartheid state of Israel, funding and supporting the Saudi Arabia-backed genocide in Yemen, sanctioning all these countries in the global south to death because they have, socialist or independent-leaning, governments there, etc. It's a structural issue, and AOC is just, an example of the, limits of opposition that you have under it, and obviously it's not much at all, right? um she's people funded, no lobbyists, but she's still, you know uh acting in a way like she's kind of bought and paid for by corporate interests or by the Democratic Party leadership. Pelosi in particular, like, seems like Pelosi just is able to, speak in their ear. No, no, don't vote no on this. Vote present. All right, okay, that's fine, Mama Bear. I'll do that. Not only does AOC refuse to take a clear position on cutting military aid to an illegal occupying force that murders Palestinians with impunity, she refuses to take a clear stance on who should pay for it, meaning you, the American taxpayer. Hmm. Israel bombs Syria almost every week. It illegally occupies Syria's precious Golan Heights, 6667. Yep. All this in violation of international law and with complete disrespect and disregard for countless UN resolutions. The United States enables this behavior and pays for it. Agreed. Agreed, Richard. Um, you heard some say vote no. Iron Dome is purely defensive. Great. Do Palestinians get one too, right? I know if the US should be giving any type of aid to anybody, it should be the fucking people of the Palestinian people, right? Not the apartheid state of Israel. You cannot build military installations on colonized Palestinian land and call them defensive. An occupying force, an aggressor, is an aggressor by definition. Agreed. And under international law, the the people, the land that's being occupied, they have the right to resist that occupation by any means necessary. As Glenn points out, Glenn Greenwald, no AOC's hypocrisy criticizing Tulsi's present vote on Trump impeachment as she does here. Whenever we have a vote, we should vote yes and we should vote no, not take a stand in a moment. So it's, I mean, and yeah, Tulsi's like just a complete right wing grifter at this point, standing for U.S. Imperialism during Tucker Carlson. Talking about how it's the open borders policy. That's why we're having issues, with mass migration and whatnot. She's a hack, but point well taken there. Um, In July, Omar Presley Lee, Bowman Jayapal voted to give Israel unconditional aid at 217 votes. Instead of blocking, they helped it pass. This is their game. They take turns voting for horrible things to not upset establishment, but they also stay on brand. Here we go. AOC, like any congressperson, cannot grow a spine to defend Palestinians without sacrificing career ambitions in DC. Again, that's why we need to get rid of this, whole disgusting structure. She was all talk in the beginning when she first ran, but once in Congress, we see how she says one thing and votes another way. AOC, as your constituent and a Palestinian who had their whole family vote for you, I'd like to say you're an absolute disgrace to the Palestinian people. The bar was so low, and yet you still don't vote no. Where's my family's Iron Dome? Is Israel kills mentally ill Palestinian with impunity? My cousin-in-law was one of them. And again, she'll probably come out with some, well, I was just really torn on the issue and I was really upset by it. And you could see me crying. Just get, how the fuck can you actually defend this, right? I mean, especially when all these other members of the squad voted for it. Um, This is AOC pretending to give a shit about Palestinians and stay on brand while not really standing in the way of Western Israeli interests. She wants a long career in DC, has strong ambitions, and as everyone knows, you can't say no to Israel.
Designated by Mr. Lawson of Florida, pursuant to House Resolution 8, and inform the House that Mr. Lawson will vote nay on House Resolution 483 amendment. He votes nay.
For what purpose?
Designated by Mr. Lawson.
Mm-hmm. Crocodile tears. I would agree. I would agree. Let's see, what else did I want to show on this? Hope your day is going well. Bum, bum, bum. Jayapal also voted yes. She's also social or Western chauvinists, all of them, if you could even call them that, because they're not even really pushing for these social chauvinist policies in the US, right? It's from Loki. 2020 pro-Israel lobby groups and individuals spent over $33 million on funding members of US Congress. Today, U.S. Congress voted to give another $1 billion to Israel, which will give it to U.S. arms company Raytheon, Israeli arms company Rafael to make Iron Dome system. And there you go. Let's see, was that the last one? But again, not surprising. Not surprising at all, frankly, right? What did Talib say something interesting on this? Let's see. Here we go. There's Omar. This vote is not about simply funding the Iron Dome. It's about adding an extra $1 billion on top of the $73 million we already allocated this year. That's 14 times more than normally spend on it, and 60% of what we provided over the course of a decade. Again, we should not be sending them any type of aid or weapons. They are an apartheid state that's literally committing, trying to commit genocide against the Palestinian people. They're able to do that because they have this unconditional support of the U.S. empire, right? Let's see, what was this one? Jayapal voted yes, by the way. Ocasio-Cortez, who changed your vote from no to president on Iron Dome at the last minute, appears visibly upset. Yes, how visibly upset do you think the fucking people in Palestine are that you voted president and you didn't fucking take a stand on this issue, you complete fucking liberal hack? Jesus. In a hug with Jayapal. Goddamn. Again, stop donating. Stop donating to Democrat, liberal politicians, even if they claim to be democratic socialists, socialist Democrats, whatever. This is the type of disgusting theatrics that they engage in. If you have extra money, extra time, resources, engage in mutual aid in your community, give people food, give people clothing, join a, political party that's trying to build political power outside of the corporate duopoly, because no substantive change is going to come through, our elected leaders. It's going to take, outside movement and outside pressure in order to do that. Keep up with your political education, mutual aid, and build that political power, because we're not going to get anything from these, liberal establishment hacks, because they're completely bought and paid for, right? Like the video if you like the damn video. Subscribe for more content. All part of the people. Peace. Much love.